I think networking online is super effective because you can see someone's profile online. It's a lot more easier. You feel like you can approach someone a lot more kind of thing. And when we take it to LinkedIn, for example, the perfect thing about LinkedIn, right, is that you see someone's profile, you know what they do, you know where they work, you know their alma mater. It's like creating like, it's already doing like half of the work for you. Like, you know what I mean? So for example, if you want to work in JP Morgan, right, and you go on LinkedIn, you type in JP Morgan, you can see someone that works in JP Morgan that's a mutual connection with a connection that you have that went to your university and so on and so forth. So with that being said, you have more of like a targeted message to send to them.
Hi everyone, hope you're doing well, hope you're looking after yourselves. We're back with another episode of Pick Up the Mic with another amazing guest speaker. We've got Stephen on the podcast today, and we're so excited to have him here to talk more about not only himself, but some of the amazing entrepreneurial things that he's done. I don't want to spoil it, but I'm just saying it's really great to see the things that he's done, especially on LinkedIn. We'll be talking more about LinkedIn later. But I guess first off, we want to start off with, in typical fashion, introducing our guest speakers. And as I said, I don't like boring you with the details about them. You want to hear from them and about them. So I'm going to hand over to Stephen. Stephen, could you just let us know a bit more about you and some of the things that you do?
Thank you, Jeffrey, and thank you for having me on. I was saying this is like my second podcast invite, and again, I find it super interesting that people want to listen to my stories because I don't think it's particularly exciting. But I guess just a bit of background into myself. I'm a 4-year corporate professional working in financial services. I'm currently working for a top tier private equity firm at the moment. Prior to that, I was working for a consulting firm advising private equity firms. And I graduated in 2018, studied banking and finance at the University of Northampton. And that's kind of like my professional life. And then outside of my day-to-day work, I'm the founder of a startup called Beyond Education, which is dedicated to helping individuals access and navigate early career opportunities in the corporate world. And then on the side, I kind of make content under the moniker Corporate Steve as well on YouTube. I really don't know how to introduce myself. This is so bad. Considering we're supposed to go to interviews and
this is perfect. This is perfect. Don't worry about it. But no, honestly, thank you so much, Stephen, for that introduction. It's really interesting to learn about your experience and your journey. And I think one thing before we officially dive into talking about stuff is it's great to hear that you've got a startup, because one of the things that I guess not only in the last 2 years with everything happening with the pandemic and everyone having a bit more free time, but in general, one of the things that I've heard people say, and we've mentioned it before on the podcast, was this idea of everyone's just like, I'm happy to launch a startup or launch a business nowadays. You see amazing things, whether it's from Depop pages or like yourself, things that promote services or encourage other individuals. It's really great to see things like that. So yeah, I guess I just wanted to start off by saying it's great to see some of the amazing work that you do, Stephen. And yeah, I'm sure our audience are excited to hear more about it.
Thank you. It's much appreciated.
That's wonderful. And yeah, now we're going to go to the first official episode question of today's episode. Now, you mentioned your startup before. For anyone who doesn't know, it's called Beyond Education, and we'll include the links to that not only in the description, but they will also be on the website. But essentially, some of our listeners might be listening and they might be thinking, what is Beyond Education? So essentially, Stephen, we want to ask you that question. What is Beyond Education?
Yes. So I won't give you the glossy version in terms of what I pitched to corporate institutions and stuff. I'll kind of tell you the story behind Beyond Education, because that's more interesting, right? And after all, it's a podcast. So I think graduated in 2018, and I was fortunate enough not to graduate in a pandemic. so I came out of university and I had a couple of job offers, and I very much thought that's how it went for everyone. I honestly just thought you come out of university, you apply for jobs, you get it. And then, I remember speaking to a few of my friends that had graduated, and they were like, oh, we're still working our retail jobs. And I was like, wait, what? Why? Didn't you get a job? And they're like, no, it's really hard. And I was like, what? Seriously? So, I just kind of helped them. I just gave them my CV and I was like, yeah, look, just put this here, put this there. And yeah, when you get an interview, just say this and say that. So I did that for a few people. And, I felt like it was relatively straightforward, and those people ended up getting jobs. And I remember I got invited to someone's YouTube channel actually to talk about how I had got like this graduate scheme, because it was like quite a fancy graduate scheme. I was working for an American firm. They flew me out to America every year, so it was like a whole ordeal, right? And she invited me to her YouTube channel to kind of talk about it, because she was doing something similar to pick up the mic, like just on YouTube. And I came on, talked about my journey, talked about how I got the job and so on and so forth. And I kind of it started thinking, okay, cool, I've been helping people here and there. I kind of want to do this on a larger scale, because evidently like not enough people like know how to like actually secure a job after uni. And I think what really kind of annoyed me was the fact that you get into so much debt, and the least we can do is like, get a job to pay off this debt, right? So I kind of, after the whole episode, I told her like, yeah, I kind of have this idea. It was actually I called it Graduate Helpline at the time. And I was like, yeah, I have this idea. I want to help people get jobs. She's like, oh my God, I have the same idea as well, blah, blah, blah. And through that, she ended up becoming my co-founder, and we founded Graduate Helpline, which later turned to Beyond Education. And we kind of went through like, so this was like in 2019. Yeah, so pre-pandemic. So we just went through a period of just like helping out as much people as possible, and, trying to like, create resources and so on and so forth. Then it got to the point where I was like, okay, cool. I kind of want to be serious with this. I kind of see this as a business opportunity kind of thing. I was like, look, let's start an Instagram page. Let's, make a company, so on and so forth. I did all of that. And then she said, oh, I don't really want to do this anymore with you. She was like, yeah, I'm not really sure if I want to do this anymore with you. So I was like, wait, what? And I had already set up the company and everything. So it was like, I had to do it. So literally set up the company, and then I just kind of ran with it since then. And essentially it's just dedicated to helping individuals access and navigate the corporate world. And the corporate world is very vague and broad, right? But the corporate world being financial services, tech, consulting, and law. That's what we kind of class as like the corporate world. And reason being is the corporate world is because that's where I found myself working when I graduated. So that's kind of like what I know about. And that's like vastly like where my network is around. So it's easy for me to kind of like help people get into that if that's where I'm around. So yeah.
Wow, that's really great. And I think, I guess, again, to highlight the entrepreneurial journey, of like you said, it's great when you find people that help you, have the same vision as you or see the same things as you, and they're just like, yeah, something needs to be done. I know even like you're saying, like we pick up the mic. That's one of the great things about the team is we're all behind the vision of it. But yeah, I know many, especially even through my academic studies and like looking into the journey, like the journey of entrepreneurships and famous entrepreneurs and what's expected for an entrepreneur. 100%. When it can be so annoying that when you've got someone, you got a co-founder, you got like someone in the team, and then they're just like, actually, yeah, I'm good. I just want to go. I just want to, it was fun while it lasted, but actually I want to do other things. And yeah, like I said, it's so important the work that you do with Beyond Education, because like you said, I think that's what, especially when I was going to university, that's how I felt. You go to uni, you might not necessarily get a job immediately. You might get some like graduate schemes before. You might not necessarily get the job that you wanted to. But I was just like, probably like 6 months after you graduate at most, you'll get a job. And then it was only like when I was at uni, and I was with people who had graduated or friends of mine who had graduated, and they were just like, yeah, I've been like looking for jobs for like years, or like I'm working in retail, but I'm still looking for jobs because this isn't what I want to do. And you're just like, oh wow, like no, that's not what happens to everyone. Yeah, it's great to see like the what you guys do. I think it's so key.
Thank you. And honestly, man, because I think, to me, like, it was just kind of like mind-boggling. I was like, oh, like, I thought, everyone just goes to uni and I remember not even thinking about uni. I was like, yeah, I'm going to graduate and get a job because that's how it's supposed to work, right? So obviously, it was just kind of, it was kind of unfortunate, like when I kind of realized that, no, it doesn't happen for people like that. And I don't know if you want me to kind of like delve into like what Beyond Education actually does to help people get jobs. Like, I don't know if you want me to do that.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, like, we've kind of gone through like a bit of restructuring, which I'll talk about in a lot more detail as the conversation progresses. But ultimately, what we try to do is basically like create a bunch of like resources and leverage our networks in order to like help people get jobs. So with that being said, like, we're not like a recruitment company as it stands. So, we can't, everyone that like works in beyond education, which is like namely like probably 3 to 4 professionals, we're working professionals. So we don't have the capacity to literally be like, dealing with every single candidate. But what we do have is a network, right? And then what we also have as well is like resources, things that have helped us get jobs, right? So we essentially just put all of these resources on our sites. We tap into our network to provide insights into like the jobs that they do. And again, this is just kind of building like a resource bank to kind of like help graduates and individuals make better informed decisions. So it's like we have like various different blogs that give you insight into like, what consulting is like or what working in investment banking is like. And again, it's just all about like, allowing people to kind of get information that would help them like make more informed decisions about the industry and hopefully like get resources or like be introduced to a network that can basically help them. And then we like, whenever we have capacity, like, we can take someone on board and be like, yeah, we'll help you review your CV and so on and so forth. But that's like kind of like a, on a case by case basis. But yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think that kind of nicely leads on to my next question. And we're going to start off this section with everyone's favourite segment, Mic Check, where I'll be, instead of a fact today, I'm going to be talking about more of, I guess, an experience, but also I guess I don't have a reference for this, but I guess if you're a graduate student, you might necessarily agree. And essentially, it's this idea of not only networking, but utilising networking sites, so like, for example, LinkedIn. And essentially, I know that through my undergrad and particularly through my masters, one of the key things that lecturers or people that I've worked with when I was doing my placements, one of the key things that they were saying is network with anyone and everyone. Like they said, you might not necessarily need to, I guess, work with everyone, but they always said that you never know, you might be looking for something one day, or they might tell you, oh hey, I remember you from this. You helped. You said you were really interested in like podcasting. I'm thinking of launching a podcast. I'd love to have your advice. Or they might say, oh, actually, my son's manager is looking for a new person to work with. And I think that that's one of the things that, as students, we sometimes don't, or we feel like, especially if it's like we go to an event, we feel like we can't actually just like walk up to someone and be like, oh, have a conversation, then be like, oh, I'd love to like add you on LinkedIn and stuff. And I think LinkedIn is great because it gives you that space to like be a professional. As a student or as a young person in general, you use social media to like pump all your social stuff and you're going out to parties and doing this and that. But sometimes it feels like you don't have anywhere to show off like your professional development and show off your skills. And, it's great as a CV is, or, a personal statement is, it's nice to have somewhere like LinkedIn that has like all of that. So for this question, Stephen, what we want to ask you is, why is networking so important? And I'm going to emphasize, especially to students, why is it so important?
Yeah, so controversial point. One thing I will say is that, how your teacher or lecturer had said, network with anyone and everyone. I disagree. I think like, networking is important, but it's about doing it effectively, right? If you think about it, right? Networking with anyone and everyone, like really and truly, like you're not going to use and you're not going to utilize any and everyone. Like it's just never going to be that thing. You want to be able to network effectively and, identify a select few people that are essentially like in the direction of like where you want to go. Right, that's number one. And then secondly, like I honestly think in-person networking events are just so useless. Like I'm so sorry. Like I just personally think like honestly, you probably go to like, if you go to 10 networking events, I'll be surprised if you like make like 3 good connections, because again, like networking events is a bunch of like random people and it's honestly like more for show than anything. I think networking online is super effective because you can see someone's profile online. It's a lot more easier. You feel like you can approach someone a lot more kind of thing. And when we take it to LinkedIn, for example, the perfect thing about LinkedIn, right, is that you see someone's profile, you know what they do, you know where they work, you know their alma mater. It's like creating like, it's already doing like half of the work for you. Like, you know what I mean? So for example, if you want to work in JP Morgan, right? And you go on LinkedIn, you type in JP Morgan, you can see someone that works in JP Morgan, that's a mutual connection with a connection that you have that went to your university and so on and so forth. So with that being said, you have more of like a targeted message to send to them. And with that being said, it's kind of like you've networked effectively, right? Because you're reaching out to someone that's probably more likely to respond to you. Whereas like, if you network with someone like in person, that's just like a random person that you reach out to, first of all, you don't know who they are kind of thing. You end up talking to them and then that conversation might end up being useless because it's just like totally unrelated and like, it's not relevant kind of thing. So I would say like network effectively. That's number one. Now, in terms of like, why it's important for students in this day and age, in this climate where it's like super, super hard to get jobs, people are doing so many unconventional things to get jobs. Like I've seen some amazing testimonials on LinkedIn of how people are getting jobs, right? So again, if it means like, reaching out to like various different hiring managers on LinkedIn and being like, hi, like, I noticed there's no, jobs on your website kind of thing, but here's my CV, like, do that. I remember like, an unconventional thing that someone did recently that actually helped get a job. She told me that, so we'd kind of like worked on her CV, we'd identified the role she wanted to apply for. When she applied for the role, she looked for the hiring manager on LinkedIn, found them, connected with them, and then messaged them and said, hi, I just applied for your role. Like, did you get my application? And I honestly feel like that's the only reason why she ended up getting a job. Like, I honestly feel like that's the only reason why they progressed her through the application. Because if you think about it, the organization she ended up getting the job for, it's like a very, very big organization, right? So I just feel like they wouldn't have seen the application unless she did that. So again, these are just like the little subtle, unconventional ways to sort of get jobs. And you sort of see it on LinkedIn, like, right? There's so many different testimonials of how people have like reached out to people on LinkedIn and, asked like, hi, like, have you got a job in this area? Or can you look at my CV? Like a lot of people like reach out to me on a daily basis, like, asking me to like review their CV or they want to have like a 5-minute call. And, I'm so happy to do that because again, that's what the platform's there for. It's there for you to like network and, interact with people, right? So I feel like, I would encourage a lot more students to do it. And the thing is, I think a lot of people are afraid of like, getting no reply or no response, but it's part of it. It's like any social media platform. You send a DM to someone on Instagram and they air you. That's fine. Like it's part of the game. It builds character. So yeah.
No, I definitely agree. I think especially like, I guess two things that I want to highlight. What you're saying about unconventional methods, I definitely agree that is key, especially like you're saying in this climate. One job thing I saw on LinkedIn was this guy I don't know if it was last year or the year before, but he basically was in Canary Wharf. He wanted to work, I believe, with a banking firm. Yeah, and he had the poster, yeah. And I was just like, and he got a job in the end. But I was just like, genuinely, like, I don't know, if you told someone like 10, 15 years ago, like, someone got a job like that, they'd be like, no, that doesn't make any sense. That's so like childish and immature. It's not professional. But like I said, I think what you raised there is so true that, candidates that get jobs are usually the ones that stand out. Especially, I think that was one of the things that my manager during my placement, she highlighted to me. She said, when people see applications, and I luckily through my placement was able to be on an interview panel, so I was able to experience this as the person trying to see who's going to get the job, but also as the person who was applying for the job. And she was saying that when you apply for jobs, the person that's doing your CV, they're going to read through, obviously, your CV and your personal statement and things like that, but they want to see things that, like, stand out. So, like you said, with the person that you helped that messaged, that's something that stands out. It's great to say, like, especially for uni students, I was the chair of this society, or I led this, or I led that. But there are other students that did that. So what are you showing that's like that one bit extra? And especially, I know we're not specifically talking about the interview stage today, but especially at the interview stage as well, because I know that that's one of the things that she was saying when I applied for the job, that she was saying that, the way, not only, I guess, the way that you carry yourself in the interview, but what you're saying, the examples you use. So, if someone, the classic one that most people get in an interview is name a time that something went wrong and you learn from it. And if, I'm not saying that if you've only got, experience from working with a society, that's bad. But showing things, it's not necessarily the story that helps you at the interview stage. It's more of like the journey. So even you could have like, I worked with a society, but we were hosting like this big event with over 200 people. We had like 3 VIPs coming in who are big people in the industry. This happened. I fixed this issue. and we learned this for next time. And that's going to be better than, you know, you saying, I did an event with some friends. It didn't go well. We learned some stuff. But yeah, I think, like you said, it's so important. And yeah, I agree that, especially, I think, yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm not being, I guess, like you said, the saying that, you know, in-person events networking events can be controversial. And I definitely agree that some people will be like, no, that's completely wrong. You know, in-person is great. But I think also it depends on like the size. It can definitely affect it. So, a couple of weeks ago, I went to like Imperial. They had like a Black founders one. So like looking at like Black entrepreneurs, because they were saying that, you know, a lot of people who are uni students, especially who go to Imperial, don't necessarily always have, you know, see that there's like a Black person who's starting up a business. So they were saying, let's do an event. And that event, I personally, probably out of like all the networking stuff that I've been to, that's probably one of the best ones that I've been to. Not only because, you know, they had some Nando's and that was quite nice, but also the fact that like they made it, like it felt like a safe space. You know, people were talking about like, as a Black person, sometimes I feel like I don't have the, you know, when I apply for jobs, they see the name and that's it. They don't want to, regardless of my experience. Or like you're saying, some people feel like the rejection just gets to them. And I felt like that was one of the things that really came out of the conversation, is everyone was saying that, you know, this feels like a safe space. But yeah, I 100% agree that if it's like the bigger ones, there is that tendency to just like, you know, you might end up talking to someone and then you know, you didn't want to be in that conversation, or you realize that person's not there.
I mean, I'll just say something. Every in-person networking event I've went to, I've not talked to the person after. And the reason I'm saying this is because people that I've networked with online, I've ended up meeting them in person, because like it just feels a lot more genuine and it feels like I know them a lot more. And I don't know if that's something that says something about me, but I just know that if I meet someone in person, I know from a networking event specifically, unless like it's a really like solid connection, it's just, I don't know, like I just feel like the in-person events are so redundant. But again, that's just me. That's honestly, that I don't think that's a universal thought, or that's like something that people should just be like, no, in-person events are rubbish. I just personally think like networking online is a lot more effective personally, but yeah.
No, that's so true. And that, I guess, nicely leads on to the other thing I was going to say, which was, you know, we've said it ever since, you know, I heard about this from someone on the podcast about, you know, messaging organizations on LinkedIn. When you said it, I was just like, I'm glad you raised it, because we've been saying that for ages. The amount of people I've told that, like, if you're looking for a job, you know, if you email people in this organization, like what you were saying, I think that's one of the great things about LinkedIn, is that you can, like you were saying, you can see, oh, you know, I've got a mutual connection who works at, like, for example, Google, or someone from my university worked at Google. And most of the time, you know, if you send this person a message and say, hi, like whoever, you know, I saw that you went to the same uni as me, I'd love to work with your organization, or I saw you worked with this organization before, I just want to know, like, how did you find it, things like that. Most of the time they're happy to let you know about it. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. Thank you so much.
And the thing is, even if they're not, it's just part of the game. It's honestly just part of it. Like, even if they, like, I remember, like, so we were like running this initiative at Beyond Education called BE Connect. And at the time, this was like when Beyond Education was still kind of finding its identity. And, you know, like, as like every ambitious and aspirational person, you want to help everyone. So when I started out Beyond Education, I wanted to help everyone like beyond the corporate world. And I remember like someone signed up for the BE Connect program and she wanted to get into interior designing. I did not know the first thing about interior designing, but I was dedicated to connect her to a professional within the interior designing space, because that was our commitment. That's literally what we said. We said, BE Connect, sign up to this program and we'll connect you with a professional in your field of interest. So I went on LinkedIn and I literally like searched up interior designers and I literally started DMing people. And I remember like, I think I DM'd like 5 people. 3 aired me, 2 responded. The one that responded, she literally out blank said, sorry, I'm not interested. Like literally. And that was the first time I've ever got a message like that. She said, sorry, I'm not interested, and just declined my connection, like just declined it. Like, and I could see it and everything. And the other one person, she was like, oh yeah, you know, I'd be more than happy to do it. And that kind of helps. But again, I didn't take it personal because that's just her preference. Because it's the same way, like, you know, on LinkedIn, you have a lot of these like Forex people and these people that do e-commerce and like, do you want to build a business on the side? They are relentless. They reach out to you and stuff. And I literally just told them I don't have capacity. And I'm pretty sure sure they don't take it personal. They just go on to email to message the next person, because at the end of the day, we have that choice on LinkedIn, right? Like, you don't have to, like, even though the platform exists to like network and stuff, you don't have to do it. Some people use it as like a platform to showcase their achievements. Some people use it as just a professional profile for people to see like what they do professionally. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's not that deep. You just have to take on the chin and move on.
No, that's so true. And, that kind of, I guess, nicely, and I guess before we move on to the next question, I'm glad I'm not the only one who's been getting messages about signing up to Bitcoin or e-commerce and things. I'm glad I'm not the only one, and I'm sure people in the audience definitely can relate to that as well. But I guess moving on to the next question, because when you mentioned, the applying and not necessarily hearing back. Some people might identify that as some of the barriers, especially entering the job market, and especially as someone, who might have graduated, let's say in 2020, and they haven't had a job till now. That's probably something that they're thinking, well, what are some of the barriers that I can identify to the job, by entering the job market, what are some of the barriers that I'll face? And then they'll be thinking, from this, what can I do to eliminate them? So essentially, I want to ask you, Stephen, what are some of the barriers when it comes to entering the job market?
So I think, to be honest, like you alluded to, like 2020 grads are probably like in the most difficult position, right? And the reason I say this is because 2020 grads graduated in a time where it was a pandemic, so there were no jobs. And then people got made redundant from jobs as well. So you had two people in the job market now, so one that's like super experienced and then one that's not experienced. And then when you move on to the next year, the pandemic went on to the next year as well. So you have three demographics looking for jobs. And basically the people that supersede this are the people that are already experienced that got made redundant, right? So with that being said, there's already a difficulty and a mismatch in the job market. And I think that's just like super unfortunate. But with that being said, honestly, I think you just have to be resilient. You have to be resilient and you just have to be patient. And I know it's easier said than done. And I almost feel like a hypocrite sometimes because I didn't really experience these struggles. And transparently speaking, I've never really struggled to get a job. Because once you get in, it's very easy to kind of navigate. But I would say honestly, resilience and patience is your best teacher. Now, on a more practical level, a lot of people would probably tell you quality over quantity and make sure that your applications are quality. No. I say quantity and quality. You need to once you identify where it is you want to work, the industry you want to work in and the role that you want to work in kind of thing, you need to put in the time to put as much applications in to those industries and make those applications quality. Because quite frankly, especially in this competitive job market, quality is just not going to cut it. There's a lot of people applying for jobs out there. Do you know what I mean? So that being said, you kind of need to put in quality and a lot of quantity as well. And that's a more practical step. And then again, going back to the unconventional ways as well, whenever you apply for something, reach out to the hiring manager, or if you see a role and you see that you have a mutual connection that works there, ask for a referral, because there's a statistic that 46% of referrals are more likely to get the job. So do stuff like that, for example. Just try and look for unfair advantages, because that's honestly what life is. Life is about unfair advantages. It's actually a theory called comparative advantage or competitive advantage in economics, right? And yeah, it's essentially just looking for an unfair advantage to kind of get in, right? So I'd say ultimately, if you could boil it down to just 3 points, resilience and patience being one thing, quality and quantity being another thing, and then thirdly, unconventional methods, and then fourthly, competitive advantage. So yeah, 4 points, but yeah.
No, that's so true. And I think that's what people generally do forget. They forget that they think, I can't have a competitive edge in the market. I shouldn't be trying to do things, but it's actually, no, you should, and I think that's one of the things that, especially like you're saying, of I'm sort of what we mentioned at the start of doing startups or doing these projects, is it's an easy way for someone to see you've got to you do stuff outside of your typical 9 to 5, and it like I said, it doesn't need to be you started a podcast or you started a business or anything like that. It can just be as simply as so I know that one of the guests that we previously had on the podcast was Laura, and she was a graduate from Brunel. She graduated I think in 2020 as well, and literally as soon as she graduated, she was looking for jobs. She couldn't find them. So what did she decide to do? She decided to start an Instagram page that's like talking about her as a graduate, looking for jobs, you know, giving advice, doing things like that. And it's the fact that, like we said, she was messaging people on LinkedIn. She eventually did find a job, and she got the job that she was looking for. But yeah, it's simple things like that. It doesn't have to be like, and again, these organizations aren't saying, oh, you know, if you set up like an Instagram account, you haven't got like over 10,000 followers, you know, it's not good enough. No, they want to see like, oh, so you even might have like 200, you might even only have 50 followers, but the content you're producing is so good for your niche and for your audience that, you know, that shows that if we were, you know, like for example, gonna work in the video like editing industry or in the filmmaking industry, then that means that they'll know that you'll be able to, whatever content you create, you'll be able to go into that. And I think, like you said, especially about like contacting people within the industries that you want to work in, is something that people feel like they can't do, but it's like they should. So I know, like for example, just before but just before the pandemic, or 2 months before the pandemic, I guess, hit, in January 2020. So I hosted a networking event with the society I founded and shared with some friends, and it was all about just like getting the young people in some organizations to talk about the fun things that they, the creative works that they do, as well as like the opportunities for students, like where they can apply things. And exactly like what you were saying, like I was messaging like any organization that could come to mind, I was messaging them. So I messaged like Sony Music, I messaged Pinewood Studios, I was messaging like everyone. And like you said, some of these people never replied. Some of these people replied and said, no, we're good. Some of these people turned up. But it's like what you said, like, it's just that resilience. And I completely agree with you. It's something that, you know, there are times when I'm messaging people of whether that's to be on the podcast or to be on any creative thing that I do, or, you know, if I'm planning an event, you send out loads of invites and then you don't only, like, maybe a couple of people turn up, and it's obviously going to suck. But it's all about like making sure that even if you've got 50 people or 100, or even like what we were saying of like whoever you apply for, if you send out 100 emails or one email, then you just make sure that you're happy with what you've done. At the end of the day, you know, jobs, like you said, the job market is hard at the moment. I'm not going to lie, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. But it's about sticking with it, you know. There will be days when you feel like, yeah, this is the job for me, and you don't get it. But I think one key advice before we go on to the next question is my one bit of advice I heard was essentially, if the job rejects you, then just take it as the job wasn't for you, and just move past it. You know, even if you were just like, oh my gosh, this was my dream job, this was what I've been like wanting to do since I grew up. If you didn't get it, accept it, move on. Life continues. And like you said, you never know. You might come back and work for that organization. But
yeah, no, honestly, it really is it is what it is situation, and yeah, I think resilience and patience is honestly just key. And as long as you know at the back of your mind that you're doing everything you can, that's all that matters. And just recognizing and giving yourself grace. Like, again, tough job market, very, 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 very tough job market, even for professionals who are in the industry trying to move. Like, mobility is very hard at the moment, right? So just recognizing that, I think, is like super important. But yeah.
Oh, definitely. And I guess, you know, coming to the last question that we've got for you today, Stephen, I just want to highlight that, you know, before we go on to this question, it's been great to hear from you and learn more about Beyond Education. But some of our listeners might be thinking, what's next? What's going to happen next? What do I have to look forward to? So Stephen, if you could just let us know what's next for Beyond Education.
No, thank you for asking. And it's so timely because like we're actually in the process of like restructuring. So as I said, like, you know, when I founded the business in 2019, well, I called it a business in 2019, right? With my co-founder, we very much envisioned that, you know, we were going to be making money through like, you know, consultant organizations and helping them like place like candidates, right? However, like, you know, it's bigger than that. It's so much more bigger than that. And there's so many elements to it, because there's the element of like helping candidates and actually guiding candidates and helping them through the process of actually getting a job. There's also the educational piece as well, right? So you have that on its own, and we ultimately call that the community, like the community piece. And then you have the business piece, which is essentially going to the organizations and like, you know, providing services to the organizations, such as getting these students in there, right? So with that being said, kind of unwound the business, like put down like the business side of things and really want to just focus on the community at the moment. Want to help as much people, educate as much people on how to like navigate this industry, how to get jobs, like, connect them to our network as much as possible kind of thing. So this year is all about community and we're really trying to focus on that. And then next year is where we're going to focus on the more commercial side of things and like the business side of things, where it's going to be like, okay, cool, we're going to these organizations now and trying to like, tell these organizations, look, we have like a pool, like we have a readily active community. All of them are educated, not only on a university level, but also like clued up about these industries that they want to go into kind of thing. Like, like let's make this happen. So yeah, I say this year is very much focused on community, and then next year is going to be focused on like commercial efforts to really like starting to reach out to businesses and actually be a business again. And it's so funny, when I was actually introducing what Beyond Education was to you, I was hesitant to call it a startup, because this year we actually, the restructure was honestly like a mindset thing. Like even in our website, we don't define ourselves as a startup anymore. It's community. It's like literally community driven. So it's just like Beyond Education is dedicated to helping individuals access and navigate the working world. Like we never ever describe ourselves like a community or a firm, because that's just not what we're doing at the moment. And even when we do launch a commercial arm next year, it's very much going to be separate from Beyond Education, the community. And I think that distinction is really, really clear. So yeah, that's pretty much what's on the horizon for Beyond Education. And you'd be glad to know that I think you're the only one that actually knows that. So yeah.
Oh, thank you very much. Nice to get an early treat. Very happy about that. I'm sure our listeners are as well. And I think, just one thing I want to say is, I guess two things actually is, one, I think like you said, sometimes what you define, something as can just like get in your head. So like you're saying, of like whether you call it a startup or, I've heard people say, if you've got something on Instagram, you can technically call it like a social platform or a creative platform. And all these like words can sometimes, I guess, block you from actually focusing on like what it is. So it's great to see that, not only you've done that, but I'm sure our listeners, with anything that they're doing, that's a great example for them to know that sometimes you don't need to be able to say, oh yeah, we're a business or we're a startup or we're this, but we're actually just focused on individuals.
You know what's so mad as well, Jeffrey? Like I held on to that for so long because I was more worried about perception, right? I wanted it to come across as like, and I'm being super transparent and vulnerable with you here, so this is actually like new, like you are literally first time getting this, but I just wanted it to come across as like I'm doing something really important, and like it's a firm, it's an organization, it's a startup, it's a platform, but no. The most important thing is we're trying to help people get into the corporate world. That is literally the goal. So that being said, when I kind of started thinking about this restructure, I was like, I need to do it down to a T. It needs to be honest. Like this is what it actually is. So that's why I was kind of like, literally, I went to our website, our LinkedIn, literally everywhere I'd ever defined it as a startup. I don't know if I think for the profile, I'm not sure, like my profile, I don't know if I actually said startup, but I remember just like when it was kind of like an epiphany. Like I had the thought and I was like, no, like, we're not a startup. We're just not, this is not what we're doing. Like, I unwound the business. I was like, I was like, no, like, this is just Beyond Education, and this is the goal, dedicated to helping individuals access the corporate world. And that's very much like where my head is kind of at this year as it stands. So I think identity of something that you're doing is like super important, because I feel like it just like gives you a lot more purpose and gives you perspective as well, which I feel like is something I'm constantly gaining as I'm trying to like run Beyond Education. But yeah.
No, that's so true. And I think that it's understanding that, you don't have to, like you said, like have it defined clearly at the start. And I think, like you said, that perception is so key, because I know, and I think especially like whether you're looking for funding opportunities for your startup, or whether you're thinking about making it like a full-time job or whatever, there's always that tendency. And even the organization that we've some of the organization we worked before, some of the individuals we worked with before. But one of the great things that we heard was when we were thinking about starting a podcast, Buzzsprout, which is a website that we use to do the podcast, they basically did this like really interesting YouTube short, and it was just like, when you're thinking of starting a podcast or starting anything, you're always like in the back of your mind, just like, oh my gosh, like what will this person think of, or like what will so and so say. But it's more to do with like, what do you feel about it? At the end of the day, if you're happy with it, go for it. If you want to do it, do it. And they were just like, yeah, if you want to launch a podcast, do it. It doesn't matter what, you think your secondary school friend from like 3 years ago is going to say about it, because they probably won't care. And they were just like as well, even if this person like sees your content or is following you or, listens to an episode of your podcast and they're just like, I don't like it. They were just like, at the end of the day, you still got an extra listen, you still got someone engaging with your content, and it's still promoting you at the end of the day. So I definitely agree with you that it's just sometimes we get lost in the identity and perception of the things that we do. We don't actually think about, as you as an individual know that you're impacting someone. That's the most important thing. But it's been great to talk to you, Stephen. And I guess we're now going to go to our new segment of Passing the Mic, where I will be passing the mic over to Stephen. Stephen has sent me a question to answer, and I believe I've got my answer ready. I'm hoping that it'll be good enough for Stephen. I'm going to hand over to Stephen now to ask his question.
Yeah, so I wanted to just understand like what you envision like the next couple of months of the podcast to look like, really. And I'll actually delve more into like why I'm asking you that question off the record, actually. But yeah.
All right, no, sounds good. So I guess so at this point of recording, currently in April, early April. So the plan for I guess the next couple of weeks or months even is to we've recently launched, as a part of our 1 year anniversary, we've launched some new segments, as well as we had some segments last year, but due to everyone's like busyness, we weren't able to do a lot more. So the plan is to just essentially give a lot of people additional content as well as our main series, because that's one of the things that we've seen, that we have really great conversations on these topics, both whether we're recording them or even after we've recorded, and we always just feel like sometimes we want to dive deeper, but whether it's to do with time or whether it's to do with there's like someone you'd love someone to talk to someone else because you've had one guest speaker on and you're just like, wow, this person would be great if they spoke to this person. Sometimes you don't always get that. So yeah, we're planning to, in the next couple of months, do more additional content as well, and that's been really fun. We started that recently. That's been really good, and I've seen that people have been watching it, people have enjoyed it, so I'm happy with that as well. But I guess aside from content stuff, we're hoping to do an event, like a launch event at some point in person. We're planning to, I guess, like you were saying, like I guess our target audience essentially is just students with their development. So whether this is current students, graduates, or students just about to leave university, we want to like highlight some of the services that are available to them, because as we discussed through not only this episode but in previous episodes, that there are resources that students don't know about, both at the university and wider. There are issues that I guess students feel like aren't really discussed, and they want to whether it's listen to someone who discusses them or go to a place where they can just hear about it and hear about some support services, which is really good. So yeah, we want to do more of like that. So more of like helping I guess our local community, or our podcasting community. And then I guess the last thing is, I guess similar to you, we want to focus on I guess our community itself. So both through the podcast, well, I guess first off with the podcast, I always say that all the guest speakers we've had have been amazing, including yourself, Stephen. It's been great to hear stories from like everyone from different walks of life, different journeys. Some of these people like yourself are starting businesses. Some of them are people who just maybe run a blog or do things like that. Some of them are like professionals or lecturers or doctors, and it's just amazing to like see some of the amazing work that these guys do. But I've always felt, both as someone who creates content, but also as a person in general, that sometimes, these individuals never get highlighted. The work that they do sometimes is so more impactful than, some of these bigger ones or bigger influencers, but they never get to get shown off. So we want to do more of like spotlighting our community, and we've launched, something called Community Spotlight, where we just post, whether it's people that we know or friends that we know that are doing great work and that can support individuals. So like, for example, like one person on the team, Michelle, she's a graphic designer. And, I didn't know she was a graphic designer, or she, was, specialized in graphic design, until she was just letting me know. She was saying she was just looking for anyone who's looking for a graphic designer. She's happy to do stuff for them. And I was just like, well, you should have told me sooner. Because I told her, like, there's loads of people that I know that are looking for graphic designers, and they don't know where to go. And I've sent them over to her. She's found them useful. And I think that's the thing, that a lot of people, like what we said at the start about networking, that there's a lot of people that it can be just that, like, oh, you need a graphic designer. I actually have a friend who's a graphic designer and they do this and I can put you in touch with them. Oh, you're looking for, you're doing YouTube content and you want to get music, but you don't want to necessarily pay for it or have to give copyright for it. Here's someone that I know who makes music. And I think that's one of the things that, the podcast definitely wants to do. But also there are individuals that align with some of the things that we're very passionate about. So whether it's to do with sustainability or addressing representation in its different, whether it's women's representation or representation when it comes to race or things like that, we want to highlight organizations that do that as well, because there are a lot of like small ones that do really impactful work that does make a change, maybe not necessarily on such a big scale, but they're still making a change, and we sometimes feel like they're not highlighted. So those would be my three main ones.
Nice. It seems like you have like a lot of like buckets of things that you actually want to like delve into, which is good, to be honest. So yeah, no, it's good to hear that, man. And I honestly like do wish you all the best for the growth of the podcast as well, man.
Oh, thank you so much. And 100% the same with you. Like I said from the start, the work that Beyond Education does is so good. It's so good. I see you guys posting, especially on LinkedIn, you guys are posting videos, posting resources and stuff like that. And I'm just like, I know loads of students or loads of friends who are looking for jobs that if they knew, or if they had something like this, especially when they were going through the university process, would have loved to have utilized, but didn't, whether it was they didn't get the opportunity or they didn't feel like they could, didn't. So 100%, I agree with you that it's honestly, man, like I said, I wish you the best with it, because what you guys do is so incredible.
Yeah, man, no, much appreciated. And that's why, like, the pivot to really focus on the community this year and like really just build up the amount of resources we have is like just super important. And that's what we're very much trying to focus on now, for the year at least. So yeah, man.
No, thank you. And I guess that nicely leads on to our MC of the Month section. And for today's MC, I'm sure some of you will be able to guess, with the title being Importance of Networking. We've mentioned it before. LinkedIn are our MCs of the month. And essentially, if you don't know about LinkedIn, I'm sure whether it's through lecturers, individuals or friends telling you to get on LinkedIn, you might have heard of it, but if not, no worries. LinkedIn is essentially like an online platform which allows you to connect with professionals around the world, and they've said on their page that it's all about making, I guess, the professional world more productive and successful. Then, they've got over 756 million members worldwide. These are people from Fortune 500 companies to startups to essentially anything out there, and they offer different. There's different subscriptions and resources available that LinkedIn themselves do. But as from both what Stephen and I have said, on a personal level, it allows you to, look for jobs, build up your own professional network. It allows you as an organization, if you wanted to have a startup, you can say that you've got a startup at them there and you can start posting as part of your, organization. So like with Pick Up the Mic, we've got a LinkedIn page and we've been posting about stuff. But it also allows you to, learn. There's LinkedIn Learning, and I know luckily through Brunel, they've currently been doing like a paid subscription. So if you link it with your student account, you can use LinkedIn Learning to learn about different resources, learn about different skills. They do ones on like, if you want to do video editing, some video editing tips. If you want to do photography, they've got stuff there. But yeah, essentially, like I said, LinkedIn is a really good resource, and especially if you're thinking of putting stuff on your CV, LinkedIn is a great way to if there's not a lot of space, because obviously you don't want to put some old stuff that you've done on your CV because you want to keep it as up to date as possible. But if you want to include links to stuff that you've done or showcase more things, then LinkedIn is a great way to do that, because you can add your own profile, you can add all the things that you've done, all the awards, all the like papers you've written. If you've written papers, you can include links to your other work that's not necessarily on LinkedIn. And yeah, I personally I vouch for LinkedIn earlier, I'm going to vouch for it again. I'm always going to vouch for it because it's just been like a great resource to utilize and showcase some of the work that you do. Yeah, they're essentially our MC of the month, and we'll include a link below to it. And I guess before we end the MC, I just want to say that I know that Brunel's PDC, or the Professional Development Center, which we've included as an MC before, they do sessions on building up your LinkedIn profile. So if you're ever unsure about, what you need to include on LinkedIn, or, how to make it look professional or eye-catching or whatever, they have sessions on that, and you can book a one-to-one session with them on it as well. So make sure you get in contact with them if you're a Brunel student. There might be one at your university if you're not a Brunel student. But yeah, there are MCs of the month. But yeah, we've now officially come to the end of the episode. Again, I've said it throughout the whole episode, but thank you again, Stephen, for being on the podcast. It's been great to hear more about you and learn more about not only your entrepreneurial journey, but the amazing work that Beyond Education does. So thank you very much. I guess before you go, we ask this to everyone. If anyone's listening and they were just like, wow, Beyond Education is something I want to get involved in, or hey, Stephen, I've got a question for you. How and what is the best way for them to get in contact with you?
I'd say the best way is like through our Instagram, because that's like where we have like most of like our active following. So if you just go on Instagram and type in Beyond Education _, because Beyond Education was taken, annoying. So if you type in Beyond Education _ you'll be able to find us there. And we just have like links to various different things like through like our Instagram. But Instagram is like the best way to like kind of get a hold of me or contact me.
Perfect, thank you. You heard it here first. Get in contact with Stephen, and as you've heard, they're focusing on the community. So this is the time for you to basically be involved. But as always, if you guys liked today's episode, like, comment, and subscribe is always appreciated. If you want to support the podcast, Patreon is the best way to do it, and the link is in the description. And finally, click that notification button if you want to see, and make sure you're subscribed. It is to make sure that you are ready for not only the next episode, pick up the mic, but if Stephen's enjoyed himself on today and we haven't annoyed him with the questions we've asked, or if he's happy to be on again, if you click that notification bell, that's the quickest way you can know when Stephen's back on the podcast discussing more things, because as you've heard today, it's been a really great conversation and we're looking forward to what else we could talk about in the future. But yeah, it's been great to have you on again, Stephen. Thank you, our wonderful audience, for listening. You guys are the best. And we'll see you all next time when we pick up the mic. So that's bye from us, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Bye.